Hello, today we are meeting Steve Locse again, and we'll be talking about the ego. Hello, Steve.
Hi, how are you, Alex? It's nice to meet you again.
Perfect. And how are you?
I am just fine, thanks a lot.
Good. So let's start. What is the ego?
All right, so let's see. Actually, if you know, I believe you know, that most people are talking about the ego from a spiritual kind of view, spiritual way, and maybe many other gurus or teachers and in ancient times, they were talking about the ego, let's say like that, kind of evil being which must be killed or must be eliminated. Well, you know, I do not agree with this, and I will explain you why. Let's see. Actually, you know that we have a physical mind. Not only physical mind, we also have a higher mind, if we can call it like that, or intuition, if you want, or an inner self. We can call it consciousness, if you want, or some different any kind of names which can explain that higher self or inner self, or as you wish. All right, but the physical mind, which is the brain, actually, has two parts. So we have a conscious part of the mind, the conscious mind, and the subconscious mind or unconscious mind. And you have to know that, as many people say, that, for example, the conscious part of the mind is a very little part, and the subconscious mind is a very big part, like a kind of iceberg, if you remember, and only the tip of the iceberg is the conscious, and the rest of it below the water, for example, is the unconscious. Well, something like that. But actually, why is that? Because the conscious mind is only the neocortex of the brain. So what is the neocortex? The surface, let's say like that, of the brain. And all the rest is the subconscious. Actually is all the automatic structure of the brain and all the automatic processing of the information. Now, what does it include? For example, starting with amygdala, for example, the limbic system, fornix, the hippocampus, the thalamus, hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, which exactly is the hypophysis, if you want, also the pineal gland, also the let's say like the small brain or cerebellum, right? And all the base of the brain, and many other structures. Yeah. So all this part is actually automatic. Why? Because you cannot control it consciously. You see, this automatic part is also includes what is called the autonomous nervous system. And actually, this autonomous nervous system has two parts also, which is the sympathetic part and the parasympathetic part. So, which controls, for example, the organs, the heart, the lungs, the every internal organs we have, and also, for example, the glands, all the glands we have. So this is automatic. Now, you must know that actually the ego is nothing more than a complex system which, as my opinion, includes all the subconscious mind, so the subconscious processing of the information, and also all this automatic system of the maintenance of the body, for example, and the functioning of the body. But we can say that this ego has different structures and different functions. All right. One of these functions is the maintenance, the automatic maintenance of the body, automatic functioning of the body. And the other part is the, I would like to call it this way, the auto-defense system. Okay, it's a defense system against any kind of danger, let's say like that. That includes, for example, the belief system, the unconscious belief system. Why? You see, the ego is able to create beliefs, new beliefs, I mean, which actually it doesn't come from anywhere. But the ego is creating a belief system because he thinks, let's say it like that, he or it thinks that it's better for you to believe this and not that. All right, let's go back a little bit. If we talk about evolution, we know that it's not really correct talking about evolution or Darwinian theory of the evolution, but there exists a phenomenon which is evolution. It really exists. And if we talk about evolution of the mind, for example, we can see actually that 5,000 years ago the people, men, wasn't equal to the today's man. I mean, today we are kind of more aware, maybe, or more knowing something. There is more technology, there is more science, and so on. But something changed a little bit inside of the brain, for example. We could call it that we have more connections, we call more synapses between the neurons, maybe, or maybe not. But the thing is that we have to process more and more and more information today than thousands of years ago. So that means that our brain started to develop a little bit better, let's say like that, to be able to process more information. Okay, we can see only today's children, for example, because in my and I think in your generation also, when we were children, we did not have so many information, for example, in comparison to today's children. Why? Because today we have internet, today we have smartphones, right? Today we have many other things which children also touch, also learn about. We did not. I remember that. Now, the thing is that maybe we are developing some more automatic structures which we do not pay attention on it. I mean, the ego is developing itself. Now, the thing is that actually we know also that we have a DNA programming, and we can inherit these programs from parents, grandparents, etc. And these programs also influences our mind, our belief system, actually. Now, the thing is that the ego mind what is doing is actually processing the five senses, I mean the information coming to us through the five senses, and let's say like judging. It is judging the information, it is evaluating the information, and decides if the information is relevant for you or not, for example. And what it's doing is to keep some information in a kind of recipients, let's call that like that, in kind of memory, okay? And it is using this information if it's needed. How it's happening that? Let's see. When we are in some situations which could be dangerous, for example, or it could be unknown, or it could be, for let's say, without any certainty, you know, you do not know what to do, okay, in a certain situation, you are lost, okay. So the ego, what is doing is to take out some of those information from the memory and to analyze the situation and to compare with other past experiences or other past, for example, programs, or the programs you have, or maybe what you already developed in your life, in your lifetime. And then it is comparing the situation and deciding what to do in certain moment, okay? But not every time is the most correct thing to do. That is why people are saying that ego is making me sabotage, you know. But the thing is that actually the ego doesn't do that because it's evil. No, it's doing that because it doesn't know how to do it differently. Okay, the ego is not taught to do it differently, do not have or does not have the enough information to do it differently. Now, you see, what is our neocortex? We can be conscious, we can be aware of different decisions. We can make decisions by ourselves consciously. When our defense system, I call it mostly like that because I consider the ego is a defense system. So when our defense system let us know, let us be aware about the, let's say, about the dangers, maybe about the situation, and let us pay attention, for example, and let us make decisions. So actually, we can process the information consciously at the neocortex and make decisions to move, for example, to speak, to respond to stimuli, okay? Different stimuli which is coming from outside, for example, and also from inside. If we have a pain, for example, we can react in a certain way. So we call it, for example, a response, unconditional response or conditional response in psychology. Now the thing is that the most part of the conditioned responses are unconscious. You know, the most part of the unconditioned, of the conditioned responses. Because, for example, if you put your hand in the fire, you will burn your hand, and automatically you will retreat your hand from the fire, from the flame, for example. This is an unconditional reflex. It's an unconditional response. but you are conscious about that because you are making yourself aware about the danger. So even if it's a reflex, but it makes you aware about the danger, about the harm you can suffer, for example. But there are other kind of conditioning, for example, Pavlovian conditioning, which mostly occurs unconsciously. Okay, now we can turn it conscious, of course, if we do our job, if we actually do a kind of research, an introspection, for example, or meditation, if you wish, and to research, if you want, to look, what do I do every time when something happens which I am not aware of, for example, and let's say like that, negative habits, for example, even positive habits can be unconscious, and these habits actually are unconscious mostly. Why? Because it's automatic. We are doing that automatically, not how is the English word of that? Elaborated. Okay, it's not elaborated thinking that I will do that because I decided to do that.
Premeditated.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, premeditated. Now, the thing is that people say, or gurus or teachers say, that maybe the ego is evil because it is sabotaging us, right? In our wills, for example, I want to reach a level of consciousness, I want to reach love, for example, I want to reach some kind of mental state, or I don't know, and I cannot calm myself, for example, I cannot be calm, I am always nervous, I am suffering of anxiety, for example, and I cannot eliminate anxiety from my life, for example, or maybe depression, of course, or other many mental diseases, if you want. And why cannot we be aware of these diseases, for example, or anxiety? Because it's automatic, again, and we can turn it conscious, okay, but we have to do a work to do it conscious, to make it conscious. Now, once we do it conscious, once we turn it conscious, now we have the power, if you want, to do something about it, okay, something against it, if you want, to heal it, if you want. Now, the thing is that actually many times ego do not let you change. Let's say that, for example, we have a belief that we are not loved, okay? Or maybe I am not able to do something, to do it. I'm not able, I'm not worthy of it. I am not worthy of wealth, for example. And many other negative things, for example. Now, in the case of love, for example, that when somebody believes that he is not loved, actually this is not true. But because of this belief, which his ego mind created, is because of the basement of previous experiences. Let's suppose that this person had many suffering in his life. For example, this person might be forsaken by someone, or abandoned, is the same thing, or I don't know, misused, or many other situations can be. And actually, these are experiences which can mark, which can really leave scars, okay, on the soul, on your heart, no? And actually, because of the suffering, the ego can tell you, you are not loved. You can see you are not loved. Everybody is treating you badly, for example. Now the thing is that when you propose yourself, now I want to demonstrate to myself that yes, I am loved. I want to find love in the world, find love in somebody, even if it's one sole person, let's say. Now, if you want to do this this research, or to find it, to go out and look for it, ego mind will tell you, don't do it. Why? Because remember that you are not loved. Remember what happened to you before. And ego mind will try to avoid, okay, a new suffering. And that's why it's telling you, don't do it, don't go outside to look for it, because the only thing what you will find is the truth that you are not loved, and you will suffer more, actually. That is the, let's say like that, kind of reasoning, okay? The reasoning the ego gives you to not to do what you propose to do, all right? And there is something more inside there. It's the fear of the unknown, all right? Because, for example, you do not know what can happen. So when the ego mind tells you, you might suffer if you go out there. So don't go out there because there might be danger, might be dangerous. So this is actually the sabotage, okay, which avoids you to act on your highest excitement, for example, your highest bliss, okay? So avoids you to be happy, let's say like that. But why? It's simple. That's because of the previous experiences from your life, or because of the negative belief system you might have in your mind. But this is not actually bad thing, because you see now that actually the ego is trying to avoid any kind of danger, any kind of harm you could experience, also physically in the body, also mentally or emotionally, all right? So actually the ego is not less than a defense system which is trying to, let's say like that, to protect you. Nothing more, is to protect you. But it's doing in a way, or in this particular way, because it doesn't know how to do it differently.
Okay,
and this
so
is
how to teach the ego that the life is always changing, and we don't have to look to the teachings of the past all the time, because they may not be valid anymore. So we need to find some way to tame the ego, to make friends with it, so that the ego would have the trust in life. Yes?
Exactly, very well. You see, there is a point when we say, for example, to love oneself, the self-love, for example. Many people cannot imagine what does that mean, because you automatically can think on, let's say, egoism, you know, you can, selfishness, you know, you think that, all right, if I love myself, I would be selfish, right? That is not actually correct. Why? You know, when some people say that we must kill the ego, we must eliminate it, we must stop it, we must, I don't know, control it, actually happens something negative inside you. What is that? You are in a conflict. You are in a conflict with your own system. And if you're trying to eliminate your ego, well, I have a bad news for you. You cannot. You cannot eliminate the ego. Why? Because it is in your DNA. If you could, if you would, let's say like that, if you eliminated the ego, actually you would die in less than 2 days, or less than 1 day, if you want. Why? Because I consider that the ego, it's not only a little part of your mind. No, it's a big system. And if you eliminate the ego, you have to eliminate also parts of the brain, for example, which is not possible. You would die, actually, maybe instantaneously. Let's say if we would eliminate only the thinking part of the ego, okay, only the processing of the ego is the same thing. Actually, without eliminating the mechanisms of the brain and the organs of the brain, and let it function automatically, even so, I think that you would not survive more than 1 or 2 days. Why? Because actually this automatic defense system can save your life in real danger outside in the world. So if you do not have an automatic defense system, you simply just die by an accident, for example. Now the part is that what we can do, actually, as you said very well, to tame, or we can use a different term for that, to re-educate the ego, to tell it what to do, to tell it, listen, ego mind, listen, physical mind, now I have new conditions, now I have new situations. For example, I have new information, let's say spiritual information if you want. Now I have a new point of view about the life, about the world, about the reality. Why don't we try to collaborate? See? And the thing is that, as I told before, if you want to eliminate the ego mind, actually you are in a conflict with your ego mind. And that means that you are not loving yourself. Because if you love yourself, that means that actually you love every part of yourself, which includes your ego. Now, you see, the ego is not your enemy. The ego is actually your best friend, which you could have ever. Why? You see, the ego is doing a very, very, very good job saving you, protecting you every time, every instant. All right? But of course, it's doing on its way, with its methods, you know. And actually, if you don't like something, how ego works with you, or how ego is treating you, for example, and sabotaging you to make changes, now you can do something. You actually can do a contract, for example, let's call it this way, or you can do a treaty, okay, with your ego, and to tell it, listen, ego, why don't we collaborate? Why don't we become friends and just try? Let me do only a little part of your control, okay? Give me only 1% or maybe 2% or 5% of control to make decisions. For example, in some situations, for example, a very common example which can happen to many people, in terms of interpersonal relationship. That can happen, for example, in mates, I mean
wife and husband.
Wife and husband, thank you. And they do not have to be wife and husband, only to a couple, yeah. So what can happen when appears a conflict between the two persons? For example, every one of them is activating its defense system. In which way? The ego of each of them is activating a kind of an analysis of the situation, and is trying to protect yourself, protect herself, himself, against suffering, against harm. What kind of harm? Of course, emotional harm in this case, for example. And when the couple are arguing on something, each of them is defending his interest, okay, his interest. And that is a problem, for example, because of course we have to defend our interest, but there are manners, different ways of treating it. I mean, to treating the other person, for example. So when you are shouting to somebody, the ego mind can tell you, okay, don't let him to shout to you, don't let to attack you, attack it back, counterattack, for example. Show that you are in control. Show him or show her, for example, that you are in control. Your point of view is better, actually, you see? And that is when both of them are defending their own point of view, actually, and there is the arguing. Now, the part is that we can tell the ego, please, next time when, if I enter in a conflict, interpersonal conflict, for example, please let me control my uprisal, if we can say that. Yes, actually in psychology we call it uprisal and arousal, if you wish. So let me control it, and let me maintain my calm, okay, to remain in calm, and let's try to communicate in peace, for example. And this is what the ego will tell you. What is that good for? See? What is that good for? Because you remember that you cannot resolve any situation being calm. It's giving you the reasons why not to do that. Why not to be calm? Why not to be just in peace? Okay? Why to enter in conflict? It's only because of protecting you from harm. But your ego doesn't know that actually you can solve the problem being calm. So you can make a proposal to your ego and telling him, listen, ego, actually, let's try it. We do not lose anything if we try to be calm and to discuss the problem in peace and to find solutions, for example. Okay, but there are many other different situations when the ego do not let you make the best, for example. Now, is that part when we can communicate with our own ego. But the problem is many times that persons and people do not even know that they have an ego. Right? This is actually the big part of that, because many people actually live inside an ego, absolutely rounded by an automatic mind, rounded and submerged, if you wish, in an automatic responding to the world, okay, to stimuli. And actually, these people are not aware having an ego mind, are not aware about their own automatic system.
And even they think that they are very spiritual. It is called spiritual ego. It is even more dangerous than normal ego.
Exactly. And that part mostly appears with, I think, maybe I don't want to make any offense to anybody, but I think because I have my own personal experience on that, that these people, as you mentioned, are mostly religious people. You see?
Not only religious, but also
not only religious, of course.
Those who, for example, practice any spiritual, so-called spiritual practices outside of any religion, and they think that they are so spiritual that they don't have any ego. And even worse is when some entities give them information and they do the channeling, this kind of stuff. So then they think that they are chosen people and only God talks through them, and this is the worst.
Exactly. And are enough people, these kind of people are pretty many, let's say. Okay, so the first thing what we have to do in this case is to be aware, okay, to make consciousness on this part of our mind, on this system of our mind, that actually we have lots and lots of automatisms, and actually we can be aware, we can make, I don't know if I express myself well, make consciousness on this part, about this part of the mind, about this ego mind, about this subconscious mind that exists, first of all, exists. The second is to recognize the job of the ego, because it's doing really a good job defending you. Okay? Why? Because you are alive. Just for that. You are alive. So it means that it's doing a really good job. You see? Okay. Defending you, protecting you from any harm. Maybe not every time can avoid a harm. But why? Because it doesn't know how to avoid it, avoid the harm efficiently. You see? Doesn't know how to do it. Why? Because it wasn't taught. It wasn't taught. It wasn't educated how to do that, actually, in peace and harmony. Okay? So, or peacefully. Now, what we can do next is that once we recognized its job, to thank it. I mean, thank you, ego, because you are protecting me so badly, you know. And now, even if I recognize it, I thank it, now I can propose something, and to remember, for example, situations.
Sorry, different words. You protected me not so badly, so well.
Yeah, but it's an English expression.
I know, but it may sound
so bad.
The other way around. Yeah.
Maybe people can misunderstand.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, so after that, I can make a proposal actually to the ego, remembering, for example, situations when, for example, let's say, ego, remember that situation when we just screwed it. You see, we screwed it up because you just took that decision. Now, why don't we try to control that decision? Let me, my conscious mind, make decisions in this situation, only in this situation, and you will see that actually works, because now I have new information, maybe new spiritual information, new maybe psychological information, so maybe I can make the right decision and not that one. Okay, don't repeat the same error. See?
Yes.
Now, that is exactly what we have to do to start to communicate with our ego mind. And you know what? When you do that, when you have this contract done, your life will change. Absolutely. Why? Because you will be aware from time to time, okay, as you go on your life, you will be aware about your ego's thinking, your ego's thoughts. When you're, for example, ego also might feel fear and anxiety, for example, when, let's say that you want to sell something, I don't know, you want to sell something, and actually you wonder if you will be paid for it. And when you are doing your negotiation, for example, let's say you are a commercial agent and you want to sell a product, for example. I am talking on my own experience. The ego asked or told my conscious mind, okay, ask for the money, now, you know, ask him when he will pay, you know. And once you made this contract, you already can hear it. You are aware of this thinking, okay? And you automatically now, for example, you pay attention on the thinking of the ego. And you say, hey, ego, calm down, please calm down. He will pay. No problem, you will get the money, no problem, calm down. We don't have to ask, you know, we don't have to ask anything. Just be calm. All right, come on. You go ahead, you say, you see, and actually, when you do not ask anything and you are being paid by the customer, and later on, you can again talk to your ego and tell it, you see, we have been paid. I have been paid. So don't worry. Nothing, no reason to be worried, you know. So this is to give it a kind of reason, a second reason, why don't to be worried. Why don't worry on things which are really you do not need to be worried on, you know.
Besides asking sometimes during the negotiation, asking about the payment might be kind of offensive. So
yeah.
it should be done very delicately.
Yes, yes. Well, this is actually, let's say like that. Actually, it's a selling strategy. Excuse me, strategy. Yeah, strategy. Yes, this is taught on commercial schools, for example, or high schools. What kind of strategy you can use if you are a commercial, for example, you are a commercial agent, right? So, well, this part of the ego is actually, again, is trying to defend you, is trying to protect you from being deceived, you know, from being harmed by not being paid, for example, and maybe is trying to protect you from frustrations also. But not every time works, all right? When you do not, when a person cannot achieve something, maybe you have some dreams, okay? You have some I don't know, plans in your life, and you cannot achieve everything what you propose. Well, people mostly become frustrated on it. All right, why I don't get it? Why cannot I succeed it, for example, right? And the ego is telling you that, you see, I told you not to do it, and you didn't listen, and now you are frustrated. You see? Okay. But in this case, for example, when we are talking about, for example, spiritual balance, we are talking about, for example, the calmness, the harmony inside you. Well, in this case, also works that we can talk to the ego. Listen, if we are in a conflict, if I get in a frustration, it doesn't give me anything, you know. So it's much better to remain in peace, to remain in calm, in harmony, than enter in conflict, you know. So because for example, the ego could tell you that now go and tell him this and this and this, because this man treated you wrongly, okay, or badly. So now you must defend yourself. No, why? Let it go. This is flowing. This means to flow with your reality, for example. So just let it go. Release yourself, because this is a charge. Okay, this doesn't give you anything positive. So you can talk to your ego and convince him, okay, don't give me these thoughts. Okay, let's do not enter in conflict. Let's remain in peace. Let's be calm. Okay.
Next question: if we want to help someone with excessive ego, how can we do it? Of course, if that person wants to. What can we do to help others?
Yes, of course. First of all, we can, from a therapeutic point of view, we can help by doing this contract, actually, in private sessions, for example. But for other people in the world, for example, it's just to practice the calmness. I mean, practice the harmony, practice meditation, for example, because meditation gives you calm, actually, relaxation if you want, but just to be patient, okay? Be patient with others, okay? And tolerant if you want. And that is a very important part. But if somebody really don't know, really doesn't have any kind of clue, any kind of information how to re-educate his own ego? Well, I am doing actually private sessions online also, and I don't know if other psychologists do know about this contract with your ego, because actually it's not a not very known method, okay? And well, maybe they can help. I am sure they can help. But this method, up to today, as my own experience, many people who contacted me, I received feedback from them that actually was working perfectly, was working excellent, because they could change their point of view. They are not in conflict with their own ego anymore. And this is a very important thing, to develop an internal love toward your own ego. I mean, love your ego unconditionally. All right? Love your ego unconditionally, because, listen, your ego is not a different entity, is not something different from you, is not something, I don't know, another entity which is talking to you. No, it is you. So loving your ego actually means that you love yourself, and yes, you are not in conflict.
So please repeat the method, how to do the agreement, the contract with yourself, just point by point, step by step.
All right, all right. So first of all, for the people who doesn't even know that they have an ego mind, first of all, they have to be aware of their ego mind, of their automatism, and then start to work with it. First, to recognize its job. Second, to thank its job, to thank its hard work to defending you or protecting you. Then, to do a proposal to change. Okay, but for that, for example, you should remember situations when you cannot achieve something. You propose yourself, you want to achieve something, and then you do not know why you do not achieve it, why you cannot reach it. Now you would have to do kind of meditation, introspection, to discover where are the how I would call them, obstacles, if you want. What are the obstacles, okay, what you cannot jump over or you cannot resolve, all right? And to recognize that all these obstacles actually is coming from your belief system. And once you know that this belief system is actually changeable, you have to propose a change. Let's change this belief. For example, I am not loved. No, I am loved. But actually, I did not find yet the right person to love me, for example. But in this case, I just remembered the sentence. In this case, for example, when you say I am not loved, it is not true, absolutely not true, because how could you not be loved by creation itself? So you just ask yourself, do you exist? Do you exist or not? If you say, yes, I exist, I am here, well, you exist out of unconditional love, because creation is unconditional love. So if you exist, you are loved. That's all. That's so simple. Now, if other people don't love you, well, do something. Okay, change. I love a sentence of Jiddu Krishnamurti. he said that when you have a problem, the fact you are looking for the solution is not the solution itself. And now, if you are suffering from or because of this problem, and you want to stop suffering, why don't you change? Change. I just love this sentence because it's true. Why don't you change? So, if you want to change your experience in your life, you have to change. Because actually this connects to the quantum mechanics we talked about before in the other session, remember? So change. If you change, you will change your frequency. And this is connected with the quantum field. So you will change your reality actually. That's
super. So changing the ego or changing the how the ego looks at our life and all the situations is kind of changing the character. So it's a huge jump ahead in our life if we allow our ego to change, to be trustful more, to trust life more.
Exactly, exactly. Actually, this is, we can say, this is the re-education of ego, or to tame it. But I don't like, actually, if you permit me, I don't want to use this term, tame, because tame might include some kind of conflict, some level of conflict, all right? Because what is very important is that it must not have any conflict between you and your ego, any conflict. Why? Because actually if you try to tame your ego, so you would have to tell him, shut up, shut up, stay there, don't intervene, don't say anything, you know, you are not worthy, you are bad, or something like kind of, you know, in the circus, when the tamers, if I say well, who tame the animals,
handlers
who tame the animals, they use some tools. I don't know the word for that. Excuse me.
Whip.
All right. So animals actually suffer from that. So I don't like exactly the word tame.
Yeah, but tame also includes like you have a cat at home and you love it. It's also the animal is kept well with love.
Yeah, but that is something different. That is conditioning also. So we can see this part also, that I mean, let's condition the ego differently. I mean, I offer something to the ego in order to the ego to give me something back. This is not unconditional. This is conditional, exactly. So I don't want to offer something to the ego and to the ego to give, I mean, the ego change itself in order to receive that, for example. No, it's not about conditioning also, because conditioning also includes some kind of conflict, you know, some kind of not peace, if you want. So what I propose is just love, infinite love, unconditional love. Why? Because actually your ego is loving you unconditionally, is doing what it's doing to protect you unconditionally. It doesn't matter what you do, what you think, what you're trying to change. Your ego is always trying to protect you from any harm, physically or mentally or emotionally, doesn't matter. So actually the ego loves you. The ego loves you, but you do not recognize it. So now what I propose, love it back unconditionally, equally, all right? And just propose something. Okay, ego, let's try to change a little bit on this. Let's try to change a little bit on that. Okay? And let's try to see the effects. And of course, once I have new information, once I have new spiritual information, I can assure you that it will work. You will see that it will work. Okay? Let's do it. Try it. We will not. We have nothing to lose.
Super. So I think you covered most of the general stuff, because the details are, there are many more details, so we'll not talk about them. So about the ego, maybe something for the finish, for the conclusion.
Well, I don't know, maybe just to say that actually if people could recognize this, and people could change their relationship with their own ego, really we could reach a big change in humanity very soon, very soon. Okay, so just think about it, because you know, conflict is not our friend. Okay? Mm-hmm. So ego can be our friend. Ego can be your best companion, let's say, your best friend in your trip and your voyage. So just love it. Love it.
Super. Thank you a lot for your lecture about the ego.
Thank you. Please, if anybody wants to contact, you can contact me directly or Alex. Oh, and one thing more, if you remember, if anybody wants to meet me in Poland, after the conference we can talk about this, or to make some private sessions, and also by online we can do it anytime. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex.
Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.